good evening, everybody. This is Matt Drouin. We are here for take 2 for the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. We had a live stream fail last week. We had an in-person studio audience for the event. And as Freddie Mercury says, the show must go on. So we just had to bite the bullet and start. I'm so sorry for the people that were in the live stream and waiting for the intro to go through. But I'm pleased to come here tonight to help share some knowledge and hopefully educate you all on what I've learned along the way, being a real estate investor, and just about my what I've learned about money, what I've learned about real estate, the mindset that I've adopted, and everything like that. So I hope it helps you think about money differently, and that we're all better off. This is part of programming called Buy Back the Rock that I started with Harold Bain last year. COVID hit, so we had to cancel all our program for the year. But our mission really is simple. We want to arm people with the information that will help them build long-term wealth, okay? Rochester as a community, we struggle with a lack of economic capacity, and we want to reverse that. And we want to make sure that we're arming parents and we're arming kids with the information that they need to excel and not struggle and thrive, not just survive. So anyways, just an introduction here. We are doing this event for free, but we ask for, we have a link in the YouTube to some donations, for donations to a PayPal group. We use those donations, we use the ticket sales from our event programming to invest in production equipment. Post-COVID, we're trying to get more live streaming capability, and we are also able to be helped by Generation Outreach, which is a wonderful organization that educates kids on other career opportunities, including videography. So our next event, we have Generation Outreach students that are helping us out there. So shout out to Justin Ortiz. Please, I am in a, basically, I'm not looking at a face, I'm looking at a camera, okay? I'm alone here at the Douglas Auditorium. So I'm not good at monologues if you've seen my videos before. So please put your comments and chat down below because I would love to answer questions. I'd like to feel like I'm not alone here. So please keep it coming. And also, furthermore, I'd like to share with you an opportunity that I'm going to select one lucky winner from the event tonight, where I will, whoever, and this is very, very subjective, whoever I feel has submitted the most thought-provoking and engaging comments on our YouTube Live, I will offer a 1-hour free coaching session, which is a $480 value to you to help roadmap your, to put together your roadmap for success. Okay, so I'm just going to pull up my YouTube my slides here. So hold on one second. We'll get that going. Okay, so we're going to get started, and all right. Here we go. Okay, so I just wanted to first introduce you myself. My name is Matt Drouin. I am a principal with OakGrove Development. We're a real estate development firm in Rochester, New York. Myself and my partner, David Martin, we focus on transformational real estate development projects, taking underutilized assets in our community and breathing new life in them. So we like to buy a lot of vacant buildings and repurpose them and bringing them to a higher and better use, and ones that will create value for the community. So the subject, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? The reason why we chose this topic is it's very, very broad. This event, you're going to feel like you're drinking out of a fire hose, okay? So that being said, there's a lot of content here. I have about like 55 slides. I'll try to be as engaging as possible. And certainly, again, as a reminder, please put your comments down below, because I'd like to have a little bit of Q&A at the end. I might not be able to get to those questions immediately, but the last 10 minutes or so, I should be able to dive into those and answer your questions individually once I get through the PowerPoint. So I want to start off first. A lot of people get confused about this as to what is a millionaire, okay? So a millionaire is basically a, well, actually, I want to pose this a question because we did it last time. So what is a millionaire? Is it somebody that makes $1 million a year? Okay. Is it somebody that has $1 million in cash? Okay. Some of the people, I know people that make $1 million a year that are broke. Okay. If you make $1 million a year, does not make you a millionaire. Okay. If you have $1 million in cash, but you have $2 million in debt, you are not a millionaire. You're upside down by $1 million. Okay. So I'd like to ask, and whoever gets this question right in the comments right now, I'll definitely give some brownie points too. So basically, a millionaire is somebody that has a net worth of $1 million or more. Okay. A billionaire is somebody that has a net worth of $1 billion or more. Basically, what it is you take the value of your assets and the value of the monetary value of your liabilities, and the difference is what you get with your net worth. Okay. I believe the average net worth of a homeowner in America is about $55,000. The average net worth of a renter is about $15,000. That's why we advocate for home ownership, even though owning your home isn't technically, it's not an asset, so to speak, because I've never had my house write me a check. But it's definitely a good place to start in terms of building that wealth. And also in Rochester, New York, it's actually cheaper to own a home than it is to rent. Okay. So that's how you calculate your net worth. Some people have a negative net worth, and that's okay that are listening to this. It is, you have to start somewhere, okay? And we have workshops that are coming up. They're gonna be dedicated to debt reduction, credit restoration, and all that good stuff to help you get back on the right, to get you on the right track to building your net worth. So in order to, what is an asset? Okay, so an asset is cash, it's bonds, it's stocks and mutual funds, it is retirement accounts, it's real estate, it's value of businesses you may own, and it's personal property, cars, clothing, jewelry, all of that, pretty boy, pretty girl type of stuff that you may have in your household, okay? Now, liability example is a credit card debt. It is your mortgage on your house or your investment properties. Even though your investment property might be an asset, is still a mortgage is considered a liability. The equity that you have in that house or investment property is basically the value of that minus the mortgage. Taxes owing, if you have back taxes, that's a liability. Service contracts, this is like anything you're obligated to pay money on, like your cable bill is a liability. Your automobile bill, any type of service contracts you have. Lease agreements, your lease agreement on your apartment that you rent is a liability. Anything that costs you money, anything that creates a cash outflow, okay, is considered a liability, okay? Auto debt, of course. Now, those are the examples of assets and liabilities. So you hear this oftentimes, a lot. The rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Okay, we are obsessed with status in this country. So we like to get obsessed over the status of the poor and the status of the rich and those things that represent those statuses. But what I want to focus on and what I want you to focus on is the behaviors and habits that create wealth, that make the rich richer and the poor poorer. And I boil it down to very simple. And it's going to sound very, very callous, but I've said this before many times. What makes the rich richer is the rich invest, the poor consume. Those are the two habits in a nutshell that drive those two disparate socioeconomic classes. Okay, so what you want to do is you want to study the rich. What do the rich do to build wealth? But on the same token, you want to understand what makes you poorer as well, and we're going to cover that in this workshop too. I always want to start out with why. Okay, why do you want to be a millionaire? Why do you want to be financially independent? The why, your why, is what is going to propel you in times that it gets hard. Okay, when you're trying to achieve something, you're going to encounter obstacles constantly. So you have to, in order to maintain a positive mental attitude through those things, you really, really have to focus on what your why is. Going back to that. I have a very, very strong why, which I'll get into my story as well, okay? So some of the reasons you may want to be a millionaire is, number one, health or wealth equals health, okay? This is very, very important, all right? There is a really, really big difference between the life expectancy of poor people and wealthy people, and it's 14 years. That is striking to me as a statistic. In terms of that difference. The reason being is because wealthy people have access to better food choices. They aren't under constant stress. Stress will kill you. Okay. And all that. And the thing is that the reason why it's the most important, why your health is important, is because if you're dead or sick, none of the stuff matters. None of it. So definitely this is one of my main reasons why I wanted to be financially stable myself. Another thing is you get healthier, more positive relationships. How many of you out there have friends that they don't talk to anymore, family members they don't talk to anymore over struggles with money? I don't have any of those strains with my family or friends. And that's very, very important to me. Freedom to do what you want, when you want, and with whom you want. This is sort of self-explanatory as to what its value is, but it's very, very important. Money gets you freedom. When you don't have money, then you are limited in terms of your options. When you can go on vacation, when you can spend time with family. This is something that's very, very important to a lot of people, and the reason why they want to scale their net worth. Being wealthier helps make you more money. What I mean by this is when you're in survival mode and you're living paycheck to paycheck and struggling, you have less possibility of thinking about long term. You're thinking about, how do I get through today? How do I get through this week or this month? How do I meet my obligations? When you have wealth and you're financially stable, you can think longer term. You can think strategically, okay? So that's what I mean by that. And then also the ability to give back generously. This is something that's very important to me. This is why I do this programming, and also why I have decided to, why I wanted to get wealthy, why I wanted to become a millionaire, is because I wanted to give back generously to my community. So that's definitely something that's very important to a lot of people in terms of getting wealthy. So introduce myself. I am Matt Drouin. I've been in real estate and investing for about 15 years. I grew up in town of Pittsford, which is a suburb of Rochester. And I actually lived in a very, very great environment to start as a kid. The one thing is that my parents, I spent the early years of my life in the city of Rochester. My parents wanted to get me access to a better school district. Okay. And so my mother was a dialysis nurse. My father at the time worked for Genesee Brewery full time. And they really, really scrapped everything they possibly had to move to Pittsford. And they basically became house poor. My mother loved to go shopping. And this was a constant argument with my father and her. She wanted my dad home. My dad wanted to have real estate as a side hustle. He was a realtor. So he worked nights and weekends, and my mother wanted him home. And that was really, really constant struggle with them. I remember arguments at the dinner table when you had, my mother and father would be arguing about money, and my dad's availability with the family and him spending time with us. And I remember constant things, him smashing his fist down on a dinner table. And I remember the pieces of ceramic from this plate just flew all over the place. Pretty traumatizing stuff like that as a kid. And they eventually got driven apart. Money is one of the biggest reasons for divorce in this country, and they got separated. And so that led me on a path of myself and my brother on, various step parents. My father was married 4 times. We lived in various basements. We lived in my aunt and niece's basement for a while. I lived in the basement of an apartment building. I remember, not having really enough money to put like adequate food on the table. We had either ate venison, which was deer that was killed by my Uncle Pondo. We had yogurt, and we had ramen noodles with sriracha. Okay, that was our sustenance. My brother and I shared a living room together in this apartment. It was actually a superintendent's apartment, so this is how I kind of got like a taste of the real estate thing. Is that my chores were not like mowing the lawn. Well, it was mowing the lawn, but it was also salting the walks, shoveling the walks. Meeting with my father with contractors to get apartments turned over and stuff like that. So it was a struggle for a while, and I just remember hating it. I didn't want to live that way. But most of all, this lack of financial stability, created basically a vacuum for my parents really not to be around. My daughter, Holly, I named her Holly Ruth because my grandmother, Ruth Robinson, really raised us as a kid because my parents were always working. So this really started to plant the seed and helped to develop my why associated with it. So anyways, in a nutshell, my overall strategy to scale my net worth was, number one, live way below my means. I didn't really have much like taste for clothes and that sort of thing as a kid because I just didn't have the money. It was always buying stuff from secondhand stores, buying stuff at the clearance rack. I remember growing up in Pittsburgh, it was just like, there was this constant image issue. I drove like a really old car that was a hand-me-down. I had, friends that drove, Audis and Lexuses and stuff like that and wore brand new clothes from Abercrombie. I wore the same damn clothes like year after year. And I still do to this day. I mean, it's a very, very hard for me to spend money on clothes. So that's one thing, is that, living below your means, paying yourself first, which I'll go later on in the presentation as well. Having my assets pay for my liabilities. I'll get to that later on as well. So that means having cash flowing assets actually pay for the stuff that you use that you need to live, like housing expense, your automotive expense and stuff like that. So you can really, really start to save and utilize the concept of the time value of money, which we'll get later on too. And then also, taking the savings that I had and investing it. I don't really keep a lot of cash on my personal balance sheet. I'm always constantly reinvesting it back in my business, back into properties, and stuff like that, because that really, really, really compounds over many, many years. Okay. So how to get started? Okay. I graduated in 2006 from SUNY Geneseo, and I lived with my dad when I graduated, right? And I got my first job as a bank teller at Chase Bank, and I hated it. It was the only job I could find. It was like the sort of height of the real estate market, and I couldn't find a real job. So I got a job as a part-time teller at Chase Bank, and also part-time at a liquor store. And that's kind of how I, got my walking around money, so to speak. And when I was complaining to my dad about, God, I hate working at the bank. I just hate standing there all day. I hate taking, just orders from people and stuff like that. So he offered me a opportunity to get my real estate license and work with him at Northfield Realtors. And so I decided I would take anything. I would have eaten a poop sandwich if I had to avoid going to work at the bank. So I got my real estate license, and I was able to, save money from commissions on houses that I sold. I saved up about $16,000. I was still working at the liquor store. And so my dad gave me sort of an ultimatum. He's like, Matt, you got to move out of the house by the end of the year. Okay. And you can either buy a house or you can live with your friends and pay rent. Well, I wasn't accustomed to paying rent, and I was pretty frugal. So that idea really didn't sit well with me. So what I did is I went on the search because I didn't want to be home. I didn't want to be homeless. I didn't want to pay rent or anything like that. So I went on the search to buy my first owner-occupied multifamily. This is called house hacking. They got very, very popular by Bigger Pockets. Shout out to Bigger Pockets. If you don't know what Bigger Pockets is, Google it. Definitely become a member and become part of theirs. It's a social media network for real estate investors. So this right here is a 4-family property. It's on Rutgers Street in the Park Avenue neighborhood. My dad said, if you're going to live anywhere, buy where you want to live. So I wanted to live in the Park Avenue where I had, fake ID, loved going to the bars when I was like, in 18 and stuff like that. So I was able to find this property. It was off market. It was an expired listing, and I had $16,000, and I used that for my down payment closing costs. I offered $165,000 with $5,000 in seller's concession, and was able to take the property down. I lived in one of the units and rented out the other 3. Now, where I really, really got bit by the bug was I closed in the middle of the month, and then I magically got $1,800 in rent checks in my mailbox. That 2 weeks went by like that. And I was like, holy moly. I was like, I knew how hard I had to work in order to earn commission in real estate. And bingo, I got $1,800, right? And I wasn't doing like big transaction deals as a realtor either. So this is really where I got exposed to the concept of passive income or passive-ish income. I didn't have any living expense. I was actually making about $200 a month. I had a roommate. I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment, but I lived up on the, up in the attic right up here, and ran the air conditioner like, 80% of the year. And so I was able to eliminate my housing expense, which on average, Americans spend about 30% of their income on housing expense. All right. So this is what I'm talking about, having your assets pay for liabilities. Okay. So that's really my first property. I still own it today. Okay. I refinanced it a couple of times, and I'll get to refinancing, the power of it later on through this, my investing journey. This is my second property, another one on Rutgers Street. This property was like falling into the ground. It needed everything. It needed a roof. It needed the front porch rebuilt. It had a huge, giant honeybee nest that was in the attic. Everything. And so I was able to track the owner of this property down. It was an estate, and I got this thing under contract. I made an offer for $80,000, and they accepted my offer. And then I went to my dad. I was like, Dad, I don't have $80,000. I made a cash offer, and I don't have $80,000 in cash. So he said, well, listen, we do a lot of work with Nothingle Home Securities. We have a relationship with them. Phil Nothingle was the owner at the time, and Phil Nothingle made what was called hard money loans. Okay, I didn't know what hard money lending was at the time, but I was like, oh, okay, all right, that's awesome. It's going to get me out of this predicament on this contract. I wasn't able to figure out how to perform on it. So Phil Nothingle gave me a bridge loan or a hard money loan of $160,000. So I was able to take $140,000. I was able to take $80,000 for the purchase, and then have about a budget of $40,000 to put into the property. Or no, $60,000 to put in the property. And so what I did is I became the general contractor. I, managed the painters, the drywall people, the plumbers, and all that stuff. Now I was like 22, 23 years old. I had no business doing this. I was way outside my comfort zone, but I knew I had to perform, because if I didn't, Phil Nothingle was going to take my opportunity. So anyways, I got that funded. I managed the project. I made a ton of mistakes in the process, a ton of mistakes. I probably spent $20,000 more than I really had to, because of my poor management skills, not working with contractors. But my dad really let me sort of like, fail a little bit so I could learn those valuable lessons. A few years later, this is my my third property. It was a 6-family. What I did is I actually, because I was saving my housing expenses, I was able to actually start funneling money into a investment account with Canandaigua National. And I let these, I made a fixed amount every single month I put in this investment account. So over the course of, I think it was 6 years or so between, the two properties on Rutgers Street, I had a pretty sizable amount in there. I had about $100,000 in there, and I actually leveraged that. I got a what's called a margin loan, and it was 3% interest only, and I would use that for my down payment and closing costs on this property. And this was my first commercial property. It was 5 units plus, and it was really close to other properties that I owned. So it was a really fantastic purchase. Made a ton of mistakes in the process with this one as well. But this is my third property. At this point in time, I had 14 units, because the previous one on Rutgers Street was 4 units as well. And actually, I moved into that property on the next property on Rutgers Street so I could get better terms in financing. Because when you're an owner occupant buying multifamily, you get much more favorable financing terms than you do when you're buying like a straight up investment property. So after this, this was my first house. I was living in the apartment at the previous place on Rutgers Street with my then wife, Nicole. And it was, I didn't want to buy a house. I knew it was a liability. Like I said before, my house has never written me a check, right? It's a liability. Your principal residence is a liability. So what I did, and the rationale I did with this, is that the cash flow from the apartment I was moving out of was going to be about $1,300 a month. My mortgage payment on this one was about $1,100 a month. And then the other apartment that I moved out of on the other place on Rutgers Street, I rented out for about $750, $800 a month. So it covered the taxes, mortgage, and insurance on the place that we live right now, actually. So, and this is a beautiful house. We absolutely love it. So this is my first actual true house, my real house. We have a dog and all that stuff. And it's great, but it's still a liability. So don't forget that. So after sort of working in real estate brokerage, I decided to take a leave. I worked for a larger property management company. I wanted to get more experience on managing larger assets like apartment communities and stuff like that. And I wanted to get that experience because I wanted to grow into larger things. I could buy, 2, 3, 4 family houses till the cows come home, but it really wasn't making, at least for me, a substantial impact on becoming financially free by the time I was 40 years old. And so I knew that I had to scale up and get exposure to those things. So I became director of operations at DHT Ventures, which is was a local real estate development company. They had assets nationwide, and I was responsible for all of them and managing all the people and stuff like that. Did I have any business doing that? I really, really didn't. But I took an opportunity that I really wasn't ready for and wasn't comfortable for, and decided, like, I can do this. I can figure it out. Okay. So all the stuff that I managed, like, these are some examples of the properties. We managed 100, 200 unit apartment communities. I was responsible for medical office buildings. I was responsible for mobile home parks, kid from Pittsford, white kid from Pittsford, going out to rural Michigan, managing mobile home parks. There was a shock value associated with that, but I learned a lot about the mobile home park industry, or manufactured housing community industry, which is actually very, very great. I have some friends that are involved with that. And also I got exposure to student housing, everything across the entire spectrum, industrial, all that stuff. So it got me a really, really good, I was sort of like a mile wide and an inch deep. But it was an amazing experience for me. So I decided to leave that position after I had saved up enough money to support myself for a year. I knew I wanted to do my own thing. I was at DHT for about 3 years. And so then when I left, I bought my first property. This is a 2-family in the neighborhood of the arts, Park Avenue area. And this one was another instance of using hard money. This was a foreclosure property that I bought for about $147,000. I utilized a hard money lender to basically take a private mortgage on that property. I wasn't dealing with a bank. I was dealing with an individual. And there's lots of private individuals out there that are earning 0.02% interest in their bank account, and you can provide an amazing opportunity for them to get a higher return on investment and be backed by a hard asset like real estate. And also they can be with an operator like yourself that they know, like, and trust. So I was able to purchase this property, just do very, very light cosmetic work to the property. And I was able to refinance that and get a larger loan in that property, and then take that hard money loan out. So I was able to get into that deal and out of it with no money out of pocket. And this is really where I learned the power of financing, and that you really don't need to have like a ton of money to invest in real estate. All you need to have is an opportunity. And then you can find the funding associated with that through networking and building your knowledge base and education. So this right here in the Northwind Village neighborhood was 4 residential apartments and 2 commercial storefronts. This deal came about through direct marketing. I was sent out postcards on a regular basis, and this person owned this property, and they had depreciated it as much as they could. They had no longer any tax benefits to it. So when I got in front of the opportunity, I offered them to, if you hold the mortgage on the property, Mr. Seller, you can actually defer your capital gains tax and depreciation recapture, which is a huge benefit to them. So I was able to do that. I put 20% down on this property. I bought it for $190,000, and I put about $25,000 into the property, and I was financing this from cash flow from my other properties that I had acquired. And when I was able to increase the value of this property, increase the rents, and also negotiate new leases with new tenants, I was able to increase the property value to $340,000, which was a huge value increase. So I was able to actually take more money out of the property through getting a higher loan on it, because I had a higher value on it. An appraiser appraised it for $330,000. So I was able to actually stick money in my pocket that I didn't even put into the deal, which was amazing. And that money was tax-free. What I learned from it was the power of getting over this fear of commercial property. A lot of people stick to just apartments because they're comfortable with that. People have rented an apartment. They know people that rent apartments, and they have this fear that if a commercial space becomes vacant, then, oh my God, it's going to be vacant for 2 years and so on and so forth. So I was able to really dispel that fear with the fact that both of the storefronts were occupied at the time. I knew that they were below market rents, and also I had the cash flow from those other properties that was able to offset any type of liability or negative cash flow from this property while I was able to lease it up. Great thing about commercial is you have long-term tenants, and oftentimes the tenants will do the build out for you. This property, or this storefront right here, was actually a property management company I rented out to. I just provided them a gutted shell. They did all of the work on the inside. They built out all their offices and stuff like that, improved the space, made it more valuable, and I didn't have a substantial money out of pocket or anything like that. I'm just going to check to see how we're doing on time. Okay. So this deal was actually came about to me through a relationship. It was actually a package of 8 properties that was being sort of auctioned through sealed bidding by the U.S. Marshal Service. There was a person who was convicted, and they had a bunch of judgments against them through the Department of Justice. So they essentially took these properties and then auctioned them off through this really, really obscure ad in the newspaper in the classified section. And I wouldn't have been made aware of it unless I had a friend, well, actually more of an acquaintance, but became a friend. And he told me about this. He's like, my girlfriend is going to be running this ad in the paper. She works for City Paper. It's too big for me, but I thought that you might be interested in it. And this came about because of the stuff that I do right now. It's my thought leadership platform that makes people know that, you know, I am involved with this in real estate investing. When they think about real estate investing and development, they think of me. So that's how this opportunity came about. This package we purchased for about 50 cents on the dollar from what the properties were worth. I put in an offer for $440,000 in the sealed bidding process, and I got awarded in the mail. Hey, you got the properties under contract. Okay. Now I had to raise basically $440,000 plus also rehab costs because some of the properties had been vacant for a long time. And I was like, oh my God, what the hell do I do? But I remembered that one of my clients, and this is actually the value of listening, okay, taking more time to listen. One of my clients I had sold a 4-family to, his father provided the financing for him to purchase the property. And so I got to talking to his father, and he said, oh yeah, I've lent money to real estate investors and that sort of thing. So I brought this opportunity to him. And I had a whole business plan prepared out for it. And we decided to partner together on it. He provided all of the acquisition money for the property and the operating capital and also the rehab expenses. So we were able to go through these. We sold off a couple of them, like this one right here. We sold this one off. We sold a few of them off. And that, because we had so much equity in them, was able to provide cash to renovate a 5-family that was part of the package that was totally trashed. So that was my strategy with that. I was able to refinance the properties after I increased the value. I was able to basically get, $800,000 in property with about $600,000 into the deal. So this was where I got my first experience with raising capital from a individual, like a high net worth individual or a wealthy person. So that was the story with that package, and still own a few of those properties today. This was a property on Oxford Street in the Park Avenue neighborhood. This one was a result of another direct mail campaign that I did, postcards again. I actually got this one. It came from the same on the North Winton Village commercial property. This was actually hold on a second. This one was actually a 3-family property. Seller contacted me in response to this, and I jumped at the opportunity. He wanted 10% down. He understood the value of seller financing, so I put 10% down on this one. I put about $10,000 into the property, utilizing cash flow from other properties that I've accumulated, and was able to increase the value on this one and refinance it and take him out, and then also get all of my rehab money back. As well. So I was able to get into this property, bought it for $225,000, put about $15,000-$20,000 into it, and was able to get the value up to $300,000. So I forced the appreciation through what I did, and I still own this property too. This was another property, commercial, all office in the neighborhood of the Arts. And this was my first $1 million deal. I got called by a broker I used to work with at the Cabot Group. And he said, hey, I know you own a lot of property in the area. I know you're pretty active. Now, again, going back to the lesson of making sure people know about what you do, what you're focused on. And this is why I do this thing, to reiterate. And so he's like, hey, it's $1 million. Take a spin through it. I'm listing it next week. And so I decided to make an offer on it because I was familiar with this property, had no experience with owning 100% commercial property. This kind of scared the living daylights out of me. But I decided, it was like, I can do this. I worked for a guy that did this. I think that I'm relatively above average in terms of intelligence, and I've had enough experience in this industry. So this one was $1 million, and I had to raise $300,000. Okay. And this money I raised actually from friends and family that they gave me that. I gave them a 7% interest on the money that they gave me for it. It funded my down payment and also some smart capital improvements I did on the property, as well as an operating account on the property as well. So I was able to, I came up with an entire business plan. It was a 5-year business plan. I told them how I was going to pay them back, how I was going to add the value, and so on and so forth. And so they decided to participate. And so I was able to execute this business plan in less than 5 years. I did it in 3 years most recently. I increased the rents. I normalized the expenses. The company that managed it, wasn't a top priority for them. They had much larger properties in a different location. So I decided to do that, get my hands, roll up my sleeves and go through and increase the value on this. So bought it for $1 million, put about $50,000 into it. It reappraised for $1.4 million. So I was able to pay my friends and family back and own this property. And I was able to, add $300,000 to my net worth. This is King Street. Same partner from the U.S. Marshals deal purchased this property. This is actually where we are right now. Purchased the property and relocated a tenant from West Henrietta to here, who is a medical device company, and we own this property as well. And we're in the process of stabilizing this, and we're going to refinance it and do it like we've done the other properties. By the way, this strategy is called the BRRRR strategy. It's BRRRR. Stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. And this is the strategy I've used for my entire career, and how I've been able to take a $16,000 investment and scale it to $2.9 million. This was my first huge apartment renovation project. This was a mixed-use building. There's two storefronts. There was a former nail salon. There was also a rent-a-center that was there. And this one needed tons of rehab. The only reason I bought this building, to be honest with you, was because I lived 2 blocks away from here, and it was a property that was just getting worse. There was a lot of drug activity through the property, and I just needed to clean it up because I was just I couldn't stand looking at it anymore. So went through that. I partnered with a general contractor who took on a majority of the rehab costs associated with it. I raised $250,000 through friends and family as well. So I put together this capital stack to execute this business plan. So I was able to purchase that property for about $775,000. Was able to increase the value to $1.4 million through their rehab and all that stuff. This one was a heavy lift. I would not recommend doing something like this for somebody that's first starting out, but this is the type of stuff you can do when you get the experience. So that's the Monroe and Meg's deal there. So this is an example, and I know this is really, really small, but this is a net worth worksheet. Okay, so you have your assets on one side and your liabilities on the other one. So this is a picture of my financial statement. Okay, and so you take my assets minus liabilities, and that's where I come up with the net worth of $2.9 million. Okay, so that being said, all this stuff and what I've picked up and learned along the way in developing is really, really mindset heavy. So that's where I'm going to start with that first. If you don't have the right mindset, it doesn't matter how much money and how much resources you have. It really doesn't. If you don't have the right mindset, all that stuff's going to go to waste and you're not going to grow. So these are some tips that I learned along the way that, it wasn't immediately apparent to me when I was first starting out. Okay. One thing that my dad used to say, if you can't manage $5, you can't manage $5 million. So you yourself are a business. Okay. Even if you don't own a business, you're a business. You have income that comes in through active income, and you have expenses that go out. So think of yourself as a business. Real estate, investing, and all this stuff, money is not going to save you. The thing is, you hear about lottery winners. 70% of them are bankrupt in 3 years. That's huge. So you definitely want to learn how to manage what you have right now to the best of your ability. If your personal finances are horrible, definitely get exposed to Dave Ramsey and his books. Harold Bain, my friend, is a huge fan of Dave Ramsey. He changed his life just by reading Dave Ramsey. Finding your focus. A lot of people I see out there are just so smushed off into a million different things, right? We get this mantra of, you want to have multiple streams of income. Well, if you have, 20 different streams of income, but none of them are actually optimized, and you're not mastered any of them, then you're going to be broke. I have, tenants that I show commercial spaces to that, they have an apparel company. They are a car salesperson. They do hair and nails. They're a day trader. All this stuff. They're doing 20 different things, but guess what? They're broke. Okay. So you have to find a focus, find what you really, really love and leverage and really, really lean into that. And that's going to be, mastery is going to develop your power. So the other thing is getting out of your comfort zone is very, very important. No pain, no gain. I equate this to the pyramid. If you've ever read The Alchemist, they go into this concept called beginner's luck. It's like God gives you encouragement when you start something for the first time, and to let you know that, hey, you're going in the right direction. All right. To encourage you. The thing is that it gets much, much harder after you get in that first level. I equate this to the pyramid. The first rung is always easy, and it gets progressively harder. And this takes time. It takes development of your skills. It takes learning. And the higher you get up the pyramid, the harder it gets. But what you're doing is you're expanding your capacity. You're expanding your capacity for pain and risk. And so there's stuff that development projects that I get involved with that people are like, Matt, how do you do it? Like, how do you sleep at night? And the thing is that I've built my capacity and my threshold for all this stuff. And I've gotten a comfort level with stuff that scares the hell out of other people. So definitely, gaining mastery is very, very important. It takes a long, long time. So you have to stick to it. This thing is very, very important. I started out as a realtor just chasing checks. Okay. I viewed everything as very, very transactional. I didn't value relationships. I was sort of like, what have you done for me lately? I was very quid pro quo, this for that. And it really, really stunted my growth. And this was where I was stuck for a long, long time. I just couldn't get over it. So what I started doing is I figured out, all right, who are the people that I need to build relationships with? Okay, these are people that have an abundance mindset. And how do I make more deposits into that relationship than withdrawals? Okay, because the more deposits you make into a relationship, you're gonna get that back like tenfold, 100-fold over time, if you're surrounded by the right people. Okay, so relational versus transactional. I'm not sure if relational is a word, but it sounds legit, so I'm just gonna use it. Investing in yourself. Benjamin Franklin said the highest return investment is an investment in yourself. This is really, really, really important. I read all the time. And I'm talking about reading. I'm not talking about driving around town, listening to an audiobook. You're really not focused on that. So I really recommend picking up a book and reading it. And believe me, I hated reading, hated it. And what I did is I said, all right, I'm going to read 1 page a day. That's it. Read 1 page a day, make it a habit. And then once that becomes a habit, I'm going to turn it to 2 pages and 3 pages and 4 pages. And now it's 10 pages. Okay. But sometimes I read 20 to 30 pages if I make the time for it, because I get really into a book. When you're reading a book, you're really putting yourself into a humble position. You are you're saying to the book, I really don't have all the answers. And I'm willing to learn and listen to a different perspective. So that's definitely very important. And I continue to do that to this day. I mix it between real estate books and also money investing books, and also leadership books and personal development as well, because I can always be a better person. Adopt the PMA, the positive mental attitude, for my hardcore kids out there. So scarcity versus abundance mindset. Okay. Scarcity mindset is what, there's only a limited amount of resources, there's only a limited amount of opportunities out there. I need to keep everything guarded. I have these secrets that I can't share and stuff like that. You have to adopt an abundance mindset and surround yourself with abundance mindset people. This is really, really how you can really flip the script on your life. And abundance is about that. We come from an abundance universe, and there is tons of opportunities out there. There's tons of money out there. There's tons of resources out there, and not thinking about like this, this sort of, this everything is scarce. Okay. So that's very, very important. Again, surrounding yourself with the right people. And this is really important to maintaining a positive mental attitude, and then also building the right relationships as well. People that may be successful, may not have an abundance mindset, may not have a positive mental attitude. You may be enamored with them because of what they have in the flash in the pan and the pretty boy, pretty girl lifestyle. But there's better people to surround yourself with. And the thing is that you are the average of the 5 people that you hang out with most. So if you're hanging out with a bunch of knuckleheads, you may be above average of those knuckleheads, but you're going to be the ringleader of the knuckleheads. So you want to step up. You want to be the dumbest person in the room, not the smartest person in the room. So that's definitely helped me during my career. The rich have the ability to think long term. Okay, when you're thinking short term, you're thinking transactional. Long term, you're thinking about, Warren Buffett is one of my favorite investors of all time. This is one of my favorite quotes. If you aren't thinking about owning a stock for 10 years, don't even think about owning it for 10 minutes. All of these amazing entrepreneurs and business owners have the ability to think out very, very long term into the future. So there's Jeff Bezos with Amazon. Amazon started out as a book company. They were the laughing stock of Wall Street at one point in time. Okay. And the reason Jeff Bezos wanted to focus on books is because books were not a commodity that somebody needed right away. They were something that somebody was willing to wait for. So he wanted to perfect getting books to people in order to build his infrastructure for logistics, because his dream was to offer all products to people. And that's what we live with today is Amazon. And customers will value convenience, especially Americans, over everything else. So the other quote I love from Warren Buffett is, nobody buys a farm based upon whether they think it's going to rain next year. They buy it because they think it's a good investment over 10 to 20 years. And this is really the mindset you have to adopt with your investing strategy. You have to think long term. These are sort of the tactical things that I use, and I know I'm getting a little bit short on time here. So these are like the individual sort of investment type of stuff that I use, that I employ in my business. Rule number 1 is don't lose money. I know this is self-explanatory. This is obvious, but it's very, very important. Managing risk is very important. That's why I choose real estate. It's a hard asset. People need a place to work, need a place to live. The risks are very, very manageable. Okay. And furthermore, there's the concept of when you lose money, you actually have to make more money on the back end to gain it back. So for example, if you make an investment of $100,000 that loses 10% in value, how much percent return do you have to earn to gain back what you lost? If you can put that in the comments and let me know what that number is. If you lose 10% and what you gain and what it takes to gain back, then I'll send you a free book. Okay. So how we calculate that is, $100,000 minus 10% of $90,000. So 90,000 plus X equals 100,000. What is that number? It's 11.11%. That is why you want to manage risk. Rule number 2, don't forget rule number 1, don't lose money. When you use your active income and your savings to invest, you're essentially using your active income to produce future income in the future. So when you lose your principal, when you lose when you lose money, you essentially are losing time, which you can never get back. You can never get back time. You can have anything in the world. You can't create time. The other thing is invest in what you understand. Okay. I don't buy cryptocurrency because I don't understand it. No matter how much I research it, I just can't understand it. Besides, I hate currency. I think cash is trash. Cash flow is king. So I don't invest in anything I don't understand. I don't invest in a lot of tech stocks and stuff like that. I don't invest in neighborhoods I don't understand. And And that's really, really important, is that if you don't understand it, getting a stock tip from somebody to buy, to buy GameStop and that sort of thing, it's not good enough. You have to really, really research that company. So, and the great thing about if you're investing in stocks, there's so much publicly available information you can use to research those. Understanding the time value of money. Time value of money means that money now is worth more than money later. Okay. So what I mean by that is that the reason why money loses value over time, and the reason why time value of money is an important concept to understand, is that, first of all, you have inflation. Everything always gets more expensive. So the value of your dollar goes down in value over time. Furthermore, to the tune of about 2 to 3% per year. Most recently, we've gotten pretty rampant inflation out of this recovery. So we're seeing that even more and more pronounced. The other thing is the opportunity cost. And let me explain that. So the opportunity cost is you have the opportunity to invest in something that actually will earn money over time. So your money sitting in the bank account earning 0.02% interest is really, really not giving you the best time value of money. So here, if you invested $5,000 a year over 10 years at an annual 8% return, which is basically the average return of the S&P 500 index, how much money will you wind up with? And this is compounded every year. You end up with $89,000. Okay, so it's over 10 years. So over 20 years, it's $270,000. Over 30 years, it's $662,000. Now, the reason why this is important is that for you young people, it's important to start investing now. Each year that ticks by, you are losing opportunity to grow your net worth, to get wealthier. So definitely take that into consideration before you buy that stupid thing that's going to be a liability, that's not going to add value. You want to think about this. Where could I be putting that money now that could be giving me a greater return? Diversification. We've always heard, don't keep all your eggs in one basket. When it comes to your active income source, I say keep all of your eggs in one basket. Okay, my focus is real estate. I gained mastery over real estate. But on the flip side, there's also diversification is for dummies. Diversifying yourself over multiple streams of income and that sort of thing, and spreading yourself too thin and not gaining a mastery of knowledge and expertise is definitely a shortcoming of a lot of investors. But at the same time, don't spend too much of your active time managing your passive investments. A lot of people out there look at, individual stocks because they're sexy. They want to invest in Apple or GameStop or Amazon or whatever it may be. The thing is that in order to invest in individual stocks effectively, you have to do a lot of research, and that takes time. The one thing is that it's very, very hard to beat the market. And what I mean by beat the market is the S&P 500 index fund, the performance of the S&P 500. Very, very few fund managers and mutual fund companies can beat the S&P 500. And fund managers are like, Ivy League, MBA, math wonks and stuff like that. They have a lot more expertise and education in picking companies than you do, and they still can't beat the market. So my recommendation is that if you don't know where to put your money and you don't have a real estate opportunity or whatever, definitely utilize index funds. They're low cost, which means there's a low expense ratio on those, meaning that you don't have to pay a fund manager so much money. Because that costs you money. It can erode your performance over time when you think about 10, 20, 30 years down the line. So I definitely recommend having a substantial amount if your equities or stocks in index funds. And they're, Vanguard and Fidelity and T. Rowe Price have very, very cost-effective index funds to invest in the S&P 500 for your equity investments. This stuff is also easy to leverage as well. So if you want to take a loan against those and use that as collateral, you can do that to fund a real estate deal. That's how I bought my third property. So definitely consider that. I view this as like, I love spaghetti. I love pasta. Okay. Your spaghetti right here is the S&P 500. Okay. I also love red pepper flakes. If you want to dabble in stocks, have a small portion of your portfolio kind of dabbling in those companies you feel really, really good long-term prospects about. And I love red pepper flakes, but I wouldn't eat an entire bowl of red pepper flakes. So you kind of want to sprinkle those in. You don't want to have the bulk of your portfolio because it's very, very difficult to manage, especially if you invest in one company like I did with Visa back after their initial public offering. Visa did very, very well, and it did so well, it ended up becoming like 80% of my portfolio because it did so well. I became very, very unbalanced. So definitely, this was at a time when I managed my own stock portfolio. I decided to give that up and give it over to somebody else and focus on real estate, making that my one thing. Understanding good debt versus bad debt. Okay. There is, we all like to blanket these comments with, all debt is bad. Dave Ramsey will tell you all debt is bad, but there is a thing between good debt and bad debt. Good debt is debt that's used to acquire cash flowing, appreciating assets, or at least assets that maintain their value over time. This is, out of all the properties I own, even if my properties made no money whatsoever, no cash flow, I would still pay $150,000 a year down in debt. And that's not bad. And I can use that equity that I build over time, even if those properties don't appreciate and they just maintain their value. I can use that equity and leverage that equity to purchase future real estate deals. So that's good debt. Okay. Bad debt is your consumer debt, your car loans and stuff like that. The stuff that you use consumer debt to buy, like, an express card and stuff like that from the mall. That is not good debt. It's using debt to purchase depreciating assets. That is not good debt. Okay. One of the last things here, and I'm actually wrapping up shortly, and I can get to your questions, is asset allocation by financial goals. So if you're looking to buy a house in 2 years, don't use your seed money for that and invest it in the stock market. Because if the stock market goes down 20%, then you're going to lose the amount to buy that real estate opportunity. So, plan your, if you're planning on something to make a major purchase or investment in 1 to 3 years, but you don't have the money right now to do it, and you want to save it and put it into something, you're going to want to put it into something that has a cash equivalent that doesn't have a large fluctuation in value. So maybe a money market account that pays a slightly higher interest rate and is also FDIC insured as well. So definitely, when you're thinking of something that's between 3 and 5 years in terms of financial planning, like something that's like a larger purchase, then you may want to think of something that's more fixed income oriented, like bonds. A lot of people do, mortgages as well, private mortgages. And then the stuff that's like 7 years and longer, I typically will asset allocate that to equities or stocks, heavily weighted in S&P 500 index funds. So, how to beat the tax man, right? We spend about 20 to 30% of our income on income tax. Okay. That's a lot of money. So real estate is an incredibly tax efficient vehicle to essentially get your, to save that money. I've been able to build a portfolio where I pay no income tax, state or federal income tax. So that's about 20 to 30% of my income that I can use to reinvest back in my business and grow my net worth. So, anyways, we're getting close to the end here. So definitely consider tax efficient ways to grow your net worth. Roth IRAs and simple IRAs, 401ks. If you have a 401k matching program with your employer, definitely take advantage of that. That's free money. So, and that is tax deferred income. So a Roth IRA is that's post-tax dollars that can, basically withdraw that tax-free later on in retirement. So think of ways to beat the tax man, right? To beat the IRS. The IRS came up with a rule book for you to take advantage of. Okay. Lastly is an announcement for our next event. We have another Buy Back the Rock event. Credit is king. We're going to talk about how to build your credit, how to restore your credit if it's shot, and how to leverage your good credit to build your net worth, how to get wealthy, because that's what I've done. I've used good debt to scale my net worth. So we have Chad and also Malika Evans. Chad is from Consumer Credit Counseling Service of Rochester. Malik Evans with ESL Bank, and also myself and Harold Bain. We're going to talk about how we use credit and good credit to scale our net worth. So that is the end of our presentation. I'm actually going to go over to let me see here. I'm going to go over to our comments here to see if we have any comments in here. So Let me see here. Oh, Demetrius Owens. Yes. And S. Haynes, I think it's probably Sonia. Any other guys have any questions before we conclude? I hope this has helped you as it's helped me. But hopefully I was helpful. Trying to think of what else I may have missed. Anything else, everybody? I'm gonna close out and go home pretty soon. Any questions? All right, Sonia, I think you're the winner. So please send me a message. I think I have your email address. I'd love to meet up with you. If you're local, we can get an in-person meeting and get some coffee or lunch together. Or if you are out of town, we can do a Zoom meeting, of course. I know everybody's sick of Zoom meetings. So anyways, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I hope you got something out of it. We'll see you next month. Be sure to be on the lookout for that announcement. So we have oh, thanks guys. I appreciate it. Oh, Harold, what books do I suggest? So types of books that I suggest is, Sonia Blade. The books that I suggest is Rich Dad, Poor Dad is one that changed my life forever. It got me thinking way differently about money, how to think like a wealthy person. That's one. Another one is Multifamily Millions is another great book. How I got to learn about Warren Buffett and study him and take him on as a mentor. It's a sort of a one-way mentorship, but this is the thing too, is if you don't have access to people that are wealthy in your sphere of influence, you can get books, you can listen to podcasts, get surrounded by those people, even if they don't know you. There's so much information out there that is so and it's free. Like take advantage of it. Even if you're, surrounded by, 100% knuckleheads and your friends and family, you can get outside that and get surrounded by people, and also networking. But The Snowball was a biography by Warren Buffett. That is the story of Warren Buffett's life, and it goes into all of his, what he's used to in his life, his investment philosophy, what he did, his scrappiness, was a great book and influential to me. I have so many. Oh God, what are other books? Let me see here. I'm trying to think. The Bigger Pockets book series is awesome. Definitely go to Bigger Pockets website. There's a ton of great books there. That gets into the actual nitty gritty of real estate investing. Is a great resource as well. And Bigger Pockets is a social media website that's a community of real estate investors that want to help you learn the business and grow. Listen to the podcast as well. They have incredible guests on there with incredible stories. That's definitely a great one too. So anything else? By the way, I'm so sad you guys missed Harold Bain's story. It's one of my favorites. That was last week. Our live studio audience was they were the only ones that got to see him. So I definitely just wanted to get give back here to the people that wanted to tune in and missed out on it. So, all right. Well, sounds good. Have a fantastic evening, everybody. And please reach out to me if you have any questions, and I'll look forward to seeing you at next month's event. Please spread the word. That's going to be live streamed with the help of Generation Outreach students as well, and as well as we're going to have some in-person tickets. I got to research what our capacity levels are for in-person events, but spread the word on that once the event goes out, please. There's a lot of people that need help credit-wise. Credit is king. Okay. I truly believe that. So please spread the word, and we'll see you soon. So I'm going to sign out, and I hope you guys have a fantastic evening. Take care.